Welcome to my channel, and this is English Podcast.
So I'm going to share the exact phrases and expressions that you need to do things in English conversations. Like when you want to interrupt someone, or you want to change the topic. Maybe when you need to end a conversation, and lots of others as well. In fact, I'm sharing 50 useful phrases that will help you in English conversations. All useful expressions that you need to improve your speaking skills and to help you maintain conversations for longer. So I hope you're ready. Let's get into it. A lot can happen during a conversation. Talking about the topic is one important part, but to speak fluently and to speak with ease, you need to have a range of conversation tools up your sleeve because there are lots of other shifts and changes that happen during a conversation, depending on who you're talking to, what's going on around you, and whether or not you're interested or not. So conversations are always two ways, right? That's what makes a conversation. So as you give your opinion or you share something, it's always nice to invite the other person's opinion, right? And this is a really important strategy to help you extend your conversations, asking for other people's opinions. So what do you say when you're asking for other people's opinions? Well, quite simply, you could ask, do you agree? Very basic. It's quite closed, that question. So what about if you opened up that question to get a more interesting answer? What do you think about that? What's your opinion? Or how do you feel about it? If you want to make it a little more polite, you might say, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Or I'm interested to hear your opinion about this. And more formally, maybe if you were at a meeting at work, you might ask, would you like to add anything? And this is just, a nice sort of polite way of inviting other people into the conversation to share their opinion. So what about what to say when you want to interrupt? When someone else is talking and you want to interrupt them, well, there are definitely ways to do it rudely, but of course there are many ways to do it politely as well. Sometimes you have to interrupt in conversations. So of course you could say, sorry, excuse me, is a little more polite. And then you can actually lead straight on with your different idea or your opinion there. Sorry, I thought our meeting was on Thursday next week, not Wednesday. It's just a little brief interjection to help you share a different opinion or a different thought. Now, you can informally interrupt someone to add an idea to a conversation by saying, do you mind if I add to that? Or, can I jump in here? And that literally means, can I jump into the conversation right now at this point? I've got something to share. I want to say it. Now, there are some more polite ways to express this as well. You might say, sorry to interrupt, but I've got something to say, or sorry for interrupting. Now, there's not a lot of difference between those two. I would just say that sorry to interrupt is probably used more when you're speaking directly to the person that you're interrupting. And then maybe if you're stepping into a room full of people talking, a meeting room or something like that, then you might say, oh, sorry for interrupting. I just needed to share something with you. Now, to go even more formal than that, perhaps if you're working in a hotel and you need to interrupt a customer, you might say, sorry, may I interrupt you for just a moment? Or, if I may interrupt you for a minute, I'd like to share something with you. Oh, actually, if you don't mind me interrupting for a moment, I'd love to tell you a little bit about the Ladies Project. If you're a woman wanting to develop the confident English-speaking version of yourself, that's just as expressive, as intelligent and interesting as you are in your own language, then you should definitely check out the Ladies Project. It's a lively online community that helps women around the world to meet and practice speaking English together. We have real conversations about the things in life that are most important. We can help you to quickly find reliable speaking partners, offer you guidance from native teachers, build your conversation skills, and overcome your fears and your frustrations about speaking English fluently. So if you want to keep improving your English conversation skills, or maybe you're looking for a way to maintain the skills that you've already developed, then I hope you'll come and check it out. We're accepting new members right now, but only for another week. So to find out more, click the link in the description below. Okay, where was I? That was a good example of what to say when you've gone off topic. If you go off topic, it means that you started talking about something. So for example, apples. But while you were talking, you started to talk about something else. You know, maybe you got distracted or you got excited and went off telling a different story. Or even the other person that you're talking to has gone off topic and you're thinking, how on earth did we end up talking about potatoes? You've got to get your conversation back on track, right? And it really is just that simple shift in the conversation. So here's how to do it. So anyway, getting back to my story. As I was saying, where was I? Yes. You can also combine some of these expressions together. So anyway, where were we? Yes, you were talking about apples. What to say when you think you understood, but you need to double check. These are really important expressions to learn to help you as you're listening so that you can feel more confident about your answers. You know, when you're answering someone else's question, this is just a little check to make sure you're answering it accurately. So if you didn't quite hear perfectly, you could say, so what you're asking is, and then repeat back what you heard. So what you want to know is, and then repeat. Do you mean, and then paraphrase what you heard? Or you could say, in other words, what you're saying is, and this is a really natural part of conversation. Native speakers are not going to care if you ask them to confirm what they said, because it just makes it much easier to continue the conversation, right? If you're working in customer service, maybe at a hotel or at a restaurant or something like that, then using the verb confirm is a little more formal. You might say, I'd like to confirm what you said. Or, excuse me, can I just confirm that or what you said? Naturally, we agree and we disagree with people all of the time, right? And there are so many different ways to do this in English. Agreeing is pretty simple, right? You can just say, yes, absolutely, to say that you agree. I completely agree with you. And we have this really fantastic expression, which is, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't possibly agree more. I really strongly agree with you. But what to say to somewhat disagree? Now, all of these examples are ways to say that you accept some of the ideas that the other person has shared, but you don't completely agree with them. Okay, so you might say, I see what you mean, but, and then express, a different opinion. I understand your point of view, but I can see where you're coming from, but I agree with you up to a point. However, I've got a different opinion. So then, what to say when you disagree completely? I don't feel the same way. Actually, I don't quite agree. Or I disagree. I'm afraid I don't agree with you on that, or about that. Now, this is quite an interesting English expression. I'm afraid. We use it when we're trying to make a statement more polite, not just to say that we're worried or we're scared. I'm afraid I can't help you. I'm afraid we've run out of sausages. So it's just a way of making those statements a little more polite. And you can do the same thing when you're disagreeing. I'm afraid I don't agree with you. So to be quite formal when you disagree, then try to add a word like respectfully. Respectfully, I have to disagree. And then if you feel like your conversation isn't going anywhere, maybe there's a bit of tension, people are getting frustrated and annoyed and you want to change the topic, well, we'll have to agree to disagree then. It's a way to end the discussion, especially when it's getting a little heated, and change the topic a little. Now, of course, in English, you can be quite rude with your body language when you're disagreeing with someone. So in formal situations, or when you want to be really polite, try to be aware of what your body is doing. So avoid shaking your head or rolling your eyes or sighing. Unless you really want that other person to see that you're frustrated or you're annoyed with them. Speaking of changing the topic, what do you say when you want to do that in English? What to say to change the topic? Now, this is useful. You might want to change the topic for a few different reasons. It could be as simple as you've run out of things to say about the topic. So instead of ending the conversation, you can simply change the topic and change direction. That reminds me. Or speaking about, or speaking of that. This is a really useful expression or a way of, kind of linking two ideas in a conversation. Speaking about your holiday to Greece, did I tell you that I've got a trip planned later in the year? But maybe you just want to introduce something completely different. So then you could try, by the way, did I tell you about this? Or, while I remember. Or before I forget, I've got something I want to say. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I've got to share it anyway. I know this is completely changing the topic, but I've got to tell you. So what to say when you're talking about a controversial topic? Now, this is more advanced conversation skills, but maybe you want to talk about politics, religion, social issues. I quite enjoy learning about these topics and having discussions about these things, but I know that my views will not always be the same as everyone else's. But that doesn't mean that you need to avoid it, right? You just need a few tools and a few tips to help you keep the conversation open and positive. So when you're introducing an idea that you feel like not everyone's going to agree with, then you could try saying, I know not everyone agrees with me, but this is what I think. Or, I know this is a contentious issue. Contentious. And then go on to explain it. It might be an unpopular opinion, but I strongly believe. I don't see eye to eye with everyone on this matter, but I think it's really important to discuss this. Whilst you may not agree with my views, I'm definitely interested in hearing yours. I'm not trying to ruffle anyone's feathers here. This is a fun little idiom to say, I'm not trying to make anyone upset or angry. I'm just sharing a different opinion. I'm not intending to ruffle anyone's feathers. What to say when you want to end a conversation? So having one of these simple expressions on hand will help you to politely end a conversation and move on, right? We don't want to get stuck in a conversation. Well, I'd best be off. It's been great chatting. Anyway, I better get back to it. Or I better get back to work. I'm so glad I ran into you. It's been great catching up. I'll see you soon. Whew. So there you have it. That was over 50 common phrases to help you have more advanced English conversations and help you to maintain those conversations even longer. Now, all of these tools are ones that native English speakers use all the time in conversations. So listen out for them in movies and podcasts. Try to hear them in context. Now, definitely don't try and learn all of them at once, okay? Not all 50 phrases at once, but definitely choose a couple of them from each category and really start to get familiar with them and how to use them.
How's your essay on cultural diversity shaping up?
It's coming together, but something feels off.
Off in what way? Structure, content, tone?
Mostly structure. I think it feels disjointed, like my ideas don't flow.
Coherence issues. Have you tried mapping out your key points?
I did, but when I expand on them, they feel repetitive or shallow.
That might be an issue with development. Rather than structure, are you supporting each idea with examples or evidence?
I thought I was, but maybe I'm not being specific enough.
Specificity is crucial. Have you considered incorporating real-world examples or personal anecdotes?
I've included a few statistics, but no personal stories. Would that make it more engaging?
Absolutely, personal anecdotes add a relatable dimension. But balance is key. Too many can overshadow the core argument.
That makes sense. Maybe I can tie in a story from my travels last summer.
Perfect idea. Just ensure the anecdote illustrates your point clearly. What's your thesis, by the way?
It's about how cultural diversity enriches societies, but I'm struggling to articulate it concisely.
Try breaking it into two parts, the benefits of diversity and its challenges, then connect them.
That's smart. It'll help me focus on both aspects without losing clarity.
Exactly. Once you've clarified that, everything else should align more naturally.
I'll rework the thesis and see if it tightens up the flow. Should I email you a revised draft?
Definitely send the draft over before that. Though, have you analyzed how each paragraph contributes to your thesis?
Not yet. I've just been writing as the ideas come to me, which might be why it feels scattered.
That's common. Try looking at each paragraph and asking, does this directly support my argument? If not, it might need reworking or removing.
I see. So, even if something sounds interesting, it shouldn't stay unless it adds value to my thesis.
Exactly. Think of your essay as a puzzle. Every piece must fit the bigger picture. What about transitions? Are they helping your ideas flow?
I'm not sure I've used linking phrases, but they feel a bit forced, like on the other hand or in addition.
Those can work, but variety is key. Instead of stock phrases, let transitions arise naturally. For example, how does one idea lead into the next?
Like explaining the cause and effect relationship between points.
Exactly. If one paragraph discusses cultural exchange, the next might explore how it fosters innovation. Logical connections make transitions smoother.
That makes sense. Should I also revisit my conclusion? It feels repetitive, like I'm just rephrasing my introduction.
A conclusion should go beyond repetition. It's your chance to synthesize ideas, highlight the bigger implications, or pose a thought-provoking question.
Bigger implications like how diversity impacts the future or global cooperation.
Precisely. Push your reader to think beyond the essay. What do you want them to take away from your argument?
That diversity isn't just a societal benefit, it's essential for progress.
Great. Now, how will you back that up in your conclusion without repeating everything you've already said?
Maybe by focusing on one compelling example and using it to tie everything together.
Perfect strategy. Choose an example that encapsulates your main points and leaves a strong impression.
Got it. I'll brainstorm a few examples and see which one fits best.
Sounds good. And don't forget to read your essay aloud. Once it's done, hearing it can help you catch awkward phrasing or uneven flow.
That's a great idea. I've never tried that before, but it might help me spot those little issues I usually miss.
It's surprisingly effective also. Keep in mind your audience. Would someone unfamiliar with the topic follow your arguments easily?
I'll keep that in mind. Maybe I'll ask a friend to read it too, just to get an outside perspective.
Smart move. A fresh pair of eyes can catch things you might overlook. How's your confidence level now?
Much better, I think. I just needed to approach it more systematically.
Good writing is a process, not just a product. The more intentional you are, the better the outcome.
Thanks for all the tips. I'll rework the draft and email it to you by tomorrow.
I'll keep an eye out for it. Looking forward to seeing your progress.